in each other as they headed off to war. Many would come back.
My younger brother is dead. I don't know if my older brother is alive. I might as well volunteer to parachute into Germany. Those were the words of my Papa Ross. In them, I hear the loss of hope he felt, and it speaks to the cost of war for me. I am here in my hometown of Kingston, Ontario at the Cross of Sacrifice. This is where my city holds its annual Remembrance Day ceremony. I feel that this is the perfect place for me to start, as it is my family's story of sacrifice. It is the story of 3 brothers who enlisted in the Second World War, my Papa Ross and his 2 brothers. These are my great-grandparents, John and Ella Ross. Like many Canadian parents at the time, they were frightened for their boys when they enlisted in the war. Their family would never be the same again. My great-uncle Lance and my Papa Ross were the first to enlist. My uncle enlisted with the Royal Rifles of Canada and my Papa Ross with the North Nova Scotia Highlanders. As you can see in this map, there are 2 theaters of war highlighted, European and Asian, the 2 which my family were involved in. In November 1941, my great-uncle Lance was sent to defend the British colony of Hong Kong. He faced impossible odds, including 4 long and tragic years of captivity. My uncle and others were tortured, starved, and worked to death, an absolute nightmare. Almost as many soldiers died in the Japanese prisoner of war camp as they did in the battle for Hong Kong. Altogether, approximately 554 died. It was a miracle that my uncle survived. However, he was never the same man again. While my great-uncle Lance was a prisoner of war, his younger brother, my Papa Ross, was participating in one of the most important days in the 20th century, D-Day. On June 6, 1944, my Papa Ross landed on Juno Beach. Guns were shooting all around him and at him. The Germans were determined to defeat us, but they didn't succeed. The Allied forces persevered and pushed inland, past Caen, onto Falaise, along the English Channel, and ultimately onto Holland. My Papa Ross and the Canadians took pride in liberating Holland. The Dutch were, and are, to be forever thankful for us for freeing them from the misery and torture which they endured at the hands of the Germans. When news of Hong Kong falling reached my family, my great-uncle Stuart joined the war with the Royal Canadian Air Force, as it was the quickest way into the war. Sadly, during training, during circuits and bumps, my Uncle Stuart's Wellington crashed. There were no survivors. Veteran stories, like those I've shared, remind us all of the terrible costs of war and how important it is to value what we have and to never forget the sacrifices given. There are many Canadian families across Canada with stories of sacrifice like my family. The names of more than 45,000 soldiers who gave their lives in the Second World War can be found on memorial walls in cities from coast to coast. This is my family's stories, and also one of my country's. To conclude my story, I am standing at the memorial wall in Kingston. This wall lists over 400 names of young men from my city who sadly lost their lives in the Second World War. Of the 1 million or more Canadians who enlisted in the war, over 55,000 were wounded and over 45,000 died. War comes at a very high cost, where many Canadians paid the ultimate sacrifice. Remember their stories each Remembrance Day as we Canadians unite as a nation for a moment of silence. My family's stories are also one of my nation's, lest we forget.
They would stand with their brothers, forever trusting in each other.